Early on in the season, David Pastrnak has been absolutely on fire, showing that he is not only one of the best wingers in the league, but one of the best players in general, putting up some pretty ridiculous numbers early on in the season with 15 goals and 15 assists in 15 games, on pace for 164 points as he's currently averaging 2 points per game. It's pretty crazy to think that there were 24 other players drafted ahead of Pasta in the 2014 NHL draft, so in today's video, I want to look at Pasta's career before he hit the NHL and heading up to the 2014 NHL draft and take a look at all of the players drafted ahead of him and see where they are right now in terms of their NHL careers. But before I get into today's video, if you guys are new around here, make sure to subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content and click the bell to turn on notifications so you do not miss any of my uploads. And now, without wasting any more time, let's jump right into this video. Growing up in Czech Republic, David Pastrnak's father Milan Pastrnak wanted his son to play ice hockey, and that is exactly what he did. Unfortunately, David's father Milan lost his lengthy battle with cancer and passed away in 2013, and David, at the time being 17 years old, used this as fuel to train harder every day to make it as a hockey player and make his father proud. And obviously, seeing how David has turned out at the NHL level and the superstar that he's become, his father Milan definitely would have been very, very proud. A year prior to his father's passing, David left his native Czech Republic at the age of 16 to play for the same team Ondřej Kopitar once skated for, who kind of started a trend for Eastern European youngsters relocating to Sweden to further develop their hockey skills. Pastrnak at the time was a 16-year-old kid all by himself in the city of Södertälje, trying to learn a completely different language, as at the time he didn't speak any English, and once he did, Pastrnak would establish a good connection with then teammate William Nylander, who remains good friends with David Pastrnak to this day. During the 2012-13 campaign, Pasta only played 11 games with Södertälje SK, posting 2 goals and 1 helper for 3 points, but it was the following season, the 2013-14 year, where he really started to make some noise and garner the attention of NHL scouts, putting up 8 goals and 16 assists for 24 points in 36 games. And then that brings us to the 2014 NHL draft, where, as we all know, David Pastrnak fell into the lap of Bruins GM Peter Chiarelli at the number 25 spot, and yes, that is Peter Chiarelli actually making a smart move for once, drafting Pastrnak 25th overall. Unfortunately for Chiarelli, though, he had to watch his 25th overall pick develop into a superstar from the outside looking in, as Don Sweeney took over as Bruins GM in May of 2015, and really David Pastrnak is a prime example that it's not all about lottery picks in the NHL, and if there was a 2014 redraft, Pastrnak would definitely be a top 2 pick, probably battling it out with Leon Draisaitl for that number 1 spot. So now that we've taken a look at Pastrnak's early life heading up to the 2014 NHL draft, let's take a quick look at every single NHL player that was drafted before Pastrnak and where they currently are right now. Starting off with Jared McCann, who was selected the pick before David Pastrnak, and while he is a pretty solid NHL player, spent some time with Florida, Vancouver, and obviously now the Pittsburgh Penguins, he's not even close to the caliber of a player that David Pastrnak is. And then we have the biggest yikes of the entire first round in Connor Bleakley, selected 23rd by the Colorado Avalanche, and he is the only player in the 2014 first round who has yet to play an NHL game, and he was selected before David Pastrnak. And then we have Kasperi Kapanen, who was at the time selected by the Pittsburgh Penguins, and then obviously moved to the Toronto Maple Leafs in the Phil Kessel trade, which was kind of a win-win for both sides, and Kasperi Kapanen is now a very useful forward for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And next up, St. Louis drafts Robbie Fabry at the 21 spot, had a good rookie season, and then obviously things didn't really work out in St. Louis, and he was just recently traded to the Red Wings, hoping for a fresh start, so Robbie Fabry's still really yet to get going as an NHLer. And then next up, Chicago drafted Nick Schmaltz, another player that is no longer with the team that selected him, as he's now a member of the Arizona Coyotes, but him at the number 20 spot, that's a good draft pick, as he has really turned out to be a pretty great NHL player for Arizona. Then at the number 19 spot, Tony DeAngelo was selected by the Tampa Bay Lightning, another player no longer with the team that drafted them, as he is now a member of the New York Rangers, but he looks like a pretty promising young defenseman for them. And then at the number 18 spot, yet another player who was no longer with the team that drafted them, as Alex Tuch was selected 18th by Minnesota Minnesota and is now a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. A good young player, didn't really get to show it off so far this season as he was injured, but still a pretty solid young NHLer. And then Philadelphia selects Travis Sanheim, a player who is actually still with the team that selected him, and he is another young promising defenseman and is a big reason why they have a pretty set up blue line for the future. And then we have Columbus drafting Sonny Milano 16th overall. Probably one of the bigger yikes of the first round as he has only played 84 NHL games, but so far this season he has been okay, but still considering how far ahead he was drafted of David Pastrnak, that's still pretty crazy to think about. And then at the number 15 spot we have my Red Wings taking Dylan Larkin. Obviously I'm pretty happy with this pick as he's kind of the future face of the franchise and he's still a young player with a lot of room to grow, so he's definitely turned out to be a great player. And then at the number 14 spot the Dallas Stars select defenseman Julius Honka, another one who's kind of a big yikes as he has only played 87 NHL games. He has requested a trade out of Dallas and things haven't really happened since then, so I'm not quite sure what the future holds for Honka. And then at the number 13 spot the Washington Capitals select Jacob Vrana, obviously a very solid pick as he is looking like a guy who could consistently be a 30 goal scorer, but he's no David Pastrnak, but it is kind of rude to compare the two. And then after Jacob Vrana, Brendan Perlini was selected 12th by the Arizona Coyotes, another player who was recently traded to the Detroit Red Wings, looking for a fresh start to really kickstart his NHL career. And then moving along to number 11 spot, a player who is no longer with the team that drafted them in Kevin Fiala, who was selected by Nashville and then obviously was traded to the Minnesota Wild in the Mikael Granlund trade. Things aren't really working out for Fiala in Minnesota so far, but he's still young and he still has some upside, so hopefully he can really get things going. And then at the number 10 spot, another one who's kind of disappointing, but he has been an NHLer for the most part, in Nick Ritchie at the number 10 spot for the Anaheim Ducks. And then following Nick Ritchie, drafted from the Halifax Mooseheads, Nikolai Ehlers, drafted by the Winnipeg Jets, a great young winger, and so far early in the season, Nikolai Ehlers has looked like he could be in for the best season of his career so far by a long shot. He has looked fantastic to start the season, and that pick by Winnipeg has definitely turned out to be pretty good for them. And then following Nikolai Ehlers, another young winger in William Nylander for the Toronto Maple Leafs, obviously a very talented player, kind of the scapegoat there in Toronto. A lot of people look to William Nylander when something goes wrong to blame him, but he is a fantastic young player and no one can really deny that. Following him, Carolina selected defenseman Hayden Fleury 7th overall, a guy who really hasn't been able to get going at the NHL level just yet, but he has played a lot of NHL games so far this season, and hopefully this is the breakout year that we've been waiting for. And then following him at the number 6 spot, Jake Virtanen of the Vancouver Canucks. Definitely didn't amount to the player that they wanted him to be, but he still is a pretty important piece of that Vancouver team, and I still think there is a 20 goal scorer somewhere there in Jake Virtanen. And then at the number 5 spot, the Islanders selected Michael Dal Colle, a guy who has only played 46 NHL games, and considering how good a lot of these other first rounders have been, that's kind of disappointing, but he is still young and still has some upside. And then at the number 4 spot, the Calgary Flames selected Sam Bennett, another player who didn't really amount to the player that they drafted him and expected him to be, but he still is like a Swiss Army knife forward for them and has slowly gotten better every single year. And then at the number 3 spot, we have the other superstar of the 2014 first round in Leon Draisaitl, a guy who, like Pastrnak, is one of the best players in the entire NHL. And every day that goes by, I'm pretty sure the Oilers get happier and happier considering they got him 3rd overall. And then the 2nd overall pick in the 2014 draft, Sam Reinhart, definitely didn't turn out to be a superstar caliber player, but he had a breakout season last year and is a pretty good wingman to have alongside of your franchise cornerstone in Jack Eichel. And then that brings us to the number 1 overall pick, which was Aaron Ekblad, taken by the Florida Panthers. Obviously a very good, very steady defenseman for them, and they definitely needed a defenseman in the worst way, so it wasn't a bad pick by the Florida Panthers by any means. So now that we have looked at every single NHL player drafted before Pastrnak in the 2014 draft, it kind of just makes it even more crazier and puts it in perspective that lottery picks in the NHL aren't everything, like I said earlier in the video, and not like the NBA where usually the only good players from the draft come in the top picks with the exception of a couple. The NHL draft is sprinkled with hidden gems throughout the entire thing, some in the 5th round, 6th round, 3rd round, 2nd round, and in David Pastrnak's case, a late 1st round pick, and he is now a superstar for the Boston Bruins and has absolutely been tearing up the NHL to start the season. So I want to finish off the video by asking you guys the question that I asked my Twitter early this morning, and that is, how many NHL players would you take over David Pastrnak? I said not many, probably guys like Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, Nathan MacKinnon, and other than that, I feel like it's kind of a toss-up, as Pastrnak is still still very young and is already one of the most dominant players in the NHL. If you guys are not following me on Twitter already, it is linked in the description of every single video. I make tweets like this all the time, so be sure to go follow me on Twitter. So that is going to wrap up today's video. I really hope you guys did enjoy, and if you guys could, please make sure to go drop a like on this video. I worked really hard on this one, was up early in the morning, putting everything together, researching Pastrnak's early life, and obviously getting all the photos to talk about all of these NHL players. So if you guys want to see more videos like this on some different NHL players, make sure to let me know down in the comment section below. And with all that being said, thank you guys so much for all the support on the channel lately. I really do appreciate it, and thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you did enjoy, please make sure to drop a like on it, and obviously subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content, and I will see you guys all in the next video.